They accused me of trying to erase them from their home. They said I was trying to get rid of them, my stepchildren, who had just lost their mother. The words stung, sharper than any blade, cutting deep into the wounds that had yet to heal from losing my wife. But was I really the villain they painted me to be, or was I simply trying to navigate the aftermath of a life suddenly turned upside down? After the initial shock of their accusations, I found myself reflecting on everything that led up to this moment. It all started after my wife passed away, a loss that blindsided us all. Her illness had been swift and merciless, leaving no time for any of us to truly prepare. One day she was there, full of life and energy, and the next she was gone, leaving behind a void that none of us knew how to fill. As her husband, I had always accepted my role as an outsider when it came to her two older children. They had a father, albeit a somewhat inconsistent one, but his family made sure that their needs were met and that their lives had some semblance of stability. I was never their guardian, just their mom's husband, a friendly adult they could rely on if needed. After my wife's passing, the family dynamics shifted dramatically. My in laws, in their kindness, stepped up to help with the children, ours and hers. They established visitation rights, ensuring the stepkids would still be part of their lives. Their father gained full custody, and they moved in with his parents, as his own bachelor lifestyle wasn't suited for raising children. In the silence that followed their departure, our home felt emptier than ever. It was a space too big for the three of us, myself and our two young children. The house held echoes of laughter and memories, each room a reminder of times that could never be reclaimed. I gave it time, 3 months, hoping that perhaps my stepchildren would return, seeking something familiar amidst the chaos of their new lives. But they never did. I found myself contemplating the future, not just for myself, but for my children, who were still too young to understand the permanence of their mother's absence. We had a 6 bedroom house thanks to a finished basement that had once housed my office and a playroom. Our children shared a room, while the stepkids each had their own space. It made sense back then, but now the arrangement seemed more like a relic of a past life. I reached out to their father, a call that I thought was straightforward and reasonable. I asked him to collect their belongings so I could clean up and perhaps paint the rooms. I wanted to create a new environment for my children, one where they could each have their own space and where I could move my office back upstairs closer to where they would be. That's when the uproar began. Accusations flew from their side of the family, a barrage of anger and misunderstanding aimed directly at me. They believed I was trying to erase the children from their mother's home, to scrub away their existence as if they had never been part of our lives. This was not my intention, not at all. In the quiet of those nights, I wrestled with their words. Was I being selfish? Was I wrong for wanting to prioritize my children's needs over those who had left, seemingly forever? I had no legal rights over my stepchildren. Decisions regarding their welfare were beyond my control. Yet, the emotional ties complicated everything. Despite the backlash, I proceeded with the changes. I boxed up their things gently, carefully, placing everything in the basement where it would be safe until their father decided to collect them. I painted the rooms, creating spaces for my children that would hopefully bring them comfort and a sense of belonging in this new chapter of their lives. The aftermath was as tumultuous as the initial accusations. Their father refused to pick up their belongings, leaving them in limbo while continuing to throw verbal jabs my way. I was called heartless, selfish, and worse. Yet I stood firm, offering the basement rooms as guest spaces for the stepkids should they choose to visit their half-siblings. As I navigated these turbulent waters, I kept asking myself where the line between self-preservation and selfishness truly lay. My children needed me, needed stability, and a home that felt theirs, at a time when so much had been taken from them. Was it wrong to provide that, even if it meant redefining the spaces that once belonged to others? Each day, I tried to balance the scales of guilt and necessity, to reconcile the loss of my wife with the future of my children. It was a delicate dance between honoring the past and embracing what lay ahead. I wasn't seeking to erase my stepchildren's presence, but to carve out a new path for those still under my care. And so, the rooms were remodeled. Each brushstroke of paint felt symbolic, a step towards healing and rebuilding. My children had their own rooms now, spaces they could call their own, where they could feel safe and loved. It was a small comfort in a world that had been anything but kind to them. In the end, I realized that the accusations, painful as they were, came from a place of grief and misunderstanding. Losing a loved one leaves scars that never fully heal, and everyone copes in their own way. For my stepchildren's family, the changes in our home might have felt like another loss atop the one they were already mourning. Reflecting on it all, I understood that I may never fully bridge the gap between our families. The choices I made were never intended to hurt or alienate, but rather to provide for those who depended on me the most. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but I hoped that, in time, understanding would prevail. As I sat in my newly arranged office, now on the main floor with my children close by, I felt a sense of peace. It wasn't perfect, and it certainly wasn't easy, but it was a start, a step towards a new kind of normalcy. I could only hope that one day my stepchildren would come to see this house not as a place they were erased from, but as a home that was always open to them, should they choose to return. In the midst of all this chaos, I found moments of quiet reflection. I would sit in the newly painted rooms late at night, the fresh smell of paint mingling with the faint memories of laughter and childhood secrets. I wondered if the echoes of their voices still lingered in the walls, a silent testament to the time they spent here. It was a bittersweet sensation, a reminder of the impermanence of life and the constant need to adapt. The backlash from their family was relentless, a storm that raged on longer than I had anticipated. I started receiving calls and messages not just from their father, but from other relatives, each with their own version of how I had wronged the children. It was exhausting, wearing me down day by day. I tried to remind myself that grief makes people say and do things they might not truly mean. But still, the words stung. Conversations with my own children became a source of solace. They were young, too young to fully grasp the complexities of the situation, but their innocence was a balm. They asked questions about the changes, and I did my best to explain things in a way that was gentle, yet honest. I told them that their half-siblings were always welcome, that the love we had for them hadn't changed. It was important to me that they understood the value of family, even when it was fractured. On weekends, when the house was buzzing with the activities of two energetic kids, I felt some semblance of normalcy returning. Their laughter was infectious, pulling me out of my ruminations and into the present moment. We would play games in the living room or venture into the backyard for impromptu adventures. It was in these moments that I saw the real reason behind my decisions, my children's happiness and well-being. I knew I couldn't control how the other family perceived my actions. All I could do was open the door for dialogue, hoping one day they might see things from my perspective. I reached out again to their father, proposing a visit where we could talk face to face, away from the heated exchanges over the phone. He was hesitant, but eventually he agreed. The day of the meeting, my nerves were on edge. I had no idea how the conversation would unfold, but I knew it was necessary. We met in a neutral location, a small cafe that was quiet and unassuming. As we sat across from each other, the tension was palpable, but I was determined to make my intentions clear. I explained everything from the practical reasons behind the changes to the emotional turmoil I had been through. I told him that the doors of our home were always open to his children, that nothing could replace their presence or the memories they had created. I hoped he understood that the changes were not meant to sever ties, but to create a space where my own children could thrive. To my surprise, as I spoke, I saw a shift in his demeanor. The hardness in his eyes softened, and for the first time, I saw a glimmer of understanding. He confessed that the transition had been hard for everyone, that seeing the rooms changed felt like losing a part of his children all over again. It was a moment of vulnerability, one that bridged the gap, if only slightly, between us. We parted ways with a promise of better communication, a small but significant victory. It was a relief, like a weight had been lifted, even though I knew there was still a long road ahead. I returned home that evening feeling lighter, hopeful for the first time in a long while that reconciliation was possible. As weeks turned into months, life slowly settled into a new routine. My children grew accustomed to their new rooms, filling them with their own personalities and dreams. I watched them flourish, and it was a reminder that despite the challenges, I had made the right choice for them. The house, though changed, was still a home, a place where love and laughter could be found in every corner. And while the absence of my stepchildren was still felt, I held on to hope that one day they might return, not just to visit, but to see the changes as a testament to the living, breathing family that still held them in their hearts. In the quiet moments of the night, when the world outside seemed to hush into a gentle whisper, I would sometimes find myself wandering the hallways of our home. Each room carried its own story, its own unique history etched into the very paint on the walls. My children's rooms, with their colorful chaos, exuded a lively vibrancy that was impossible to ignore. They were spaces filled with dreams and possibilities, where every toy and drawing bore witness to their boundless imaginations. Yet, it was the rooms that once belonged to my stepchildren that drew me in most often. Despite the fresh coats of paint and the new arrangements, I could still feel their presence lingering like a shadow. I would stand there in the dim light, recalling the times when their laughter echoed through these very halls. It was a bittersweet reminder of the past, a past that felt like another lifetime. I often wondered how they were adjusting to their new lives, living with their grandparents. Were they happy? Did they miss the familiarity of this house? Or had they already moved on, embracing the change with youthful resilience? These questions swirled in my mind, unanswered yet persistent, as I struggled with the guilt of not being able to offer them the stability and continuity they might have needed. In the midst of these reflections, I found solace in the routines I built with my own children. Mornings were a flurry of activity: breakfast to prepare, school bags to pack, and hurried goodbyes as they dashed off to catch the bus. In the evenings, we would gather around the dinner table, sharing stories of our day, their animated voices filling the room with warmth and chatter. It was during these times that I saw the strength of our little family unit. Despite the upheaval, we were finding our way, creating new traditions and cherished memories. I realized that while I couldn't undo the past or change the circumstances, I could provide a loving environment for my children, a place where they felt secure and valued. As the seasons changed, so did the dynamics with my stepchildren's family. The initial storm of anger and accusations gradually subsided, replaced by tentative steps towards understanding. The visit with their father had opened a door, albeit a small one, to better communication. We started exchanging more civil messages, mainly about the kids and how they were doing. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. One afternoon, as I was cleaning the basement, I stumbled upon the boxes containing my stepchildren's belongings. They were still there, untouched, like a time capsule waiting to be opened. I decided to give their father another call, gently reminding him that their things were here, ready to be picked up whenever they were ready. To my surprise, he seemed more receptive this time, acknowledging that it was something they needed to do. It was a step, perhaps a tiny one, towards a semblance of closure. I hoped that by reclaiming their possessions, they might find a way to reconcile with the changes that had taken place. Maybe, in time, they would come to see this house as a part of their history rather than a chapter that had been abruptly closed. In the quiet of the night, I found myself whispering a silent promise to my stepchildren, wherever they were. I promised them that this house would always have a place for them, that the love we shared was not confined to walls or rooms, but lived on in our hearts. It was a vow I intended to keep, no matter how long it took for them to find their way back. Life continued, as it always does, with its own rhythm and pace. The days turned into weeks, then months, each bringing its own challenges and joys. My children grew, both in height and spirit, their laughter a constant reminder of the resilience of youth. They thrived in their new environments, their happiness a testament to the choices I had made. And as for me, I learned to navigate the complexities of our blended family, embracing the imperfections and the beauty that came with it. I discovered that family was not just about blood ties or shared living spaces, but about the heart, the unyielding connection that binds us, even when the world seems determined to pull us apart. In the end, I realized that the journey we were on was not just about finding a place for everyone under one roof. It was about carving out a space in our hearts for each other, a space where love and acceptance could thrive, regardless of the walls that surrounded us. Subscribe for more stories.